Assalamu alaikum, welcome to this video. We are going to be reacting to Elon Musk's speech at the Trump ceremony, and it was a speech that was all over the internet. 34 million views on this particular video, actually probably a lot more. And I wanted to get your reaction because you're a public speaker, and also there's been an incident recently, a scandal in regards to the informer, in regards to Musk, and you know, this is something that, you know, a lot of people on the internet are speaking about. So let's watch the video and get a reaction.
Did you see his rocket yesterday? It was captured. And X is with him. X. Come on, Elon, say a couple of words.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Sorry, little X just followed me on the stage here. He's a very enthusiastic supporter, as you can see. Woo! Yeah. So we're looking forward to making a lot of changes, and you know, this victory is the start, really. What matters going forward is to actually make significant changes, cement those changes, and set the foundation for America to be strong for a century, for centuries, forever. So, and make America great again. Yeah. So, yeah. So anyway, we're gonna do great things here. Thank you.
That was a really poor performance. Not only did he not actually say anything of substance, in fact, you know, if I was to actually sit there as a public speaking teacher, the first thing I would say to him is, Mr. Musk,
get off the stage. Get off the stage. Leave us as
you know what you could say? You could say, Mr. Musk, could you be more vague? We're going to set foundations and we're going to make significant changes. Could you be more vague than that, please, sir? Plus, you have the opportunity, say, to go up to next to the president, to give a speech. You have hundreds of thousands of people who, if you sneeze, they're going to clap. Yet, you have an audience already roaring for you, but you cannot deliver. What does that say about this man as an individual?
Well, he's socially unaware. That was a cringeworthy performance, there's no doubt about it. And the thing is, he's very hesitant and, you know, weak. Lacking in confidence for someone who doesn't says the things that he doesn't says. And we've seen, and we've been following him on X, for example. He's a very fragile man. We've seen him, for example, react in a very weird way to people, online critics.
Vindictive.
A vindictive manner. And he's meant to be this bastion of free speech. In fact, I've been reading some articles, Tortoise Media, etc., that he's actually had PIs, private investigators, 24-hour private investigators that he's set on people, you know, for a very long time for him to damage their reputation. So he's acting in a very, according to these reports, obviously it's all alleged, but people like even Amber Heard, you know, and a guy called Martin Tripp, I think his name was, he was working in Tesla himself, who he put private investigators, set them on him. And you have this guy, the scandal with this guy called Osmond Gold, I think he is called, or something like that. Well, he was a gamer. And it was alleged that he obviously was lying about his achievements in gaming, and then he became frantic and tried to, I don't know what he tried to do with this guy, take retributive action, according to the sources that I read. You know, so the man has got a fragile ego. I find it surprising, bro. Like, imagine someone with 250 billion, okay?
Space company.
But he's so weak. I mean, he's so weak that these online critics are hurting him, and he's reacting in this way to the online critics, that he can't deliver on stage, that he can't act in a charismatic and confident manner.
And not only can he not do that, when he has the opportunity to do something good, what does he do instead? He uses his platform to stir up hatred of people because of the power he has. So, for example, in Thailand, there were people that were stuck. They were stuck in that cave. There was a British scientist who was looking to free them up. And Elon Musk wanted to jump on the marketing wave and say, well, I have a plan to save them. And the British scientist basically said,
Do you know what his name is?
I don't remember. There's articles on this.
Yeah.
And what he basically said is, no, he rubbished it. He said something about it. What does Musk...
scientist said rubbish it, right?
The scientist rubbished it. And remember, he's dealing with a high-pressure situation, trying to save lives. So what does Musk do? Just give him kind words to encourage him? Musk instead calls him a pedo.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So because he's a white man in Thailand, he uses that trope. And what happens afterwards? This becomes into a media scandal. Now imagine you're a scientist trying to save people's lives. Musk endangered people's lives by attacking that scientist, because now the scientist is not thinking about saving lives. He's thinking about a man who's one of the most influential men on the earth has called me a pedo. What is my wife going to... Like, you're endangering the lives of people out of hatred because you wanted to jump on a marketing wave and you got rejected. Such a weak man. Have you come... I mean, who does he remind you of in terms of personalities of the people you've debated?
Well, to be honest, he just reminds me of the archetypal narcissist. You know, he's manifesting all of the the traits that one would read in the DSM manual for narcissistic personality disorder. Like, he's hypersensitive to criticism. He's
Overreacting.
over exaggerates his own abilities. He has delusions of grandeur, which are to a very, very high level. Like, you know what I mean. And now, as we can see, someone who's 250 million. I think the guy's called Vernon Unsworth. Is that how you pronounce it? The scientist.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, the guy is actually not impressive. When we talk about him as a character, when we talk about him as a person, he's not actually impressive. I find it quite incredulous that you have swathes of people in the public in the Western world who actually look at this man almost like a pseudo-prophet. A man who can't deliver public speeches properly, the man who's a dysfunctional family man, the man who's very fragile. His ego is notoriously fragile.
Well, look, not only that, if you, in front of your very own eyes, in front of your own, within your own family, if you can allow your stepsister to be groomed by your father, what type of mental impact is that going to have in the future? And he's coming on X and saying, this thing about justice, that thing about justice. He wants to help people across the pond, across the Atlantic, but he couldn't help his own stepsister in the house.
Yeah.
So what does it say about a man like this?
He's got a messiah complex. He thinks he can just... What I think's really going on with him is that he thinks he just wants to conquer things. He wants to exert influence in every sphere. And he's just not capable of that. Okay. He's not a cultural force in that sense.
But he wants to be a cultural icon.
He wishes he could be, but he just doesn't have the charisma for it. Like, put it this way, right?
Do you think this...
Let me ask you a question, right?
Yeah.
Look, Hitler, Adolf Hitler, right? He could command an entire nation to war. Could lead them all to war. People would listen to what he had to say. Winston Churchill, same thing, right? People like that, because they have force of character. They have a certain leadership quality, yeah? Elon Musk is incapable of doing that. People would never go to war for Elon Musk. If you imagine someone like that, Elon Musk, with that kind of speech that he made, trying to bring people to fight for him, it's never possible.
Yeah.
He's attacking Islam indirectly, and he's retweeting all these accounts that attack Islam directly. For the sake of argument, let's compare the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, who we're speaking about 1,400 years later, with Elon Musk. Elon Musk is unlikely to be spoken about in the next 40 years, let alone 1,400 years.
Allahu Akbar.
Unlikely. Oh, there was a billionaire that he owned an electric car company.
It's like
he was bailed out by this and that. He will not have a cultural impact. He needs to understand he cannot, and he does not have the facility to have a cultural impact that will even have an impact on people in his time, let alone historically.
It's really interesting you say that, because...
And people will not die from this man.
It's really interesting you say that, because when we look at, say, Malcolm X, he died young.
Yes.
Martin Luther King died young. Other people, they died young. Ahmadi, he had his speeches. What one speech or one moment can we say about this man, except for the money he has and the influence he buys?
Put it this way, you take the wallet away from this man, he's vulnerable. The test of a real man, a virtuous person, a quality man, is if you take his possessions away from him, if you take his money away from him, the quality remains.
He can restart a movement, like Napoleon could restart an army. If you take Napoleon out of France...
This man, you take his money away from him, he instantly becomes vulnerable. physically, psychologically vulnerable, and in every single way. He's not a virtuous man. He's not a quality man. He instantly becomes vulnerable. That's the difference between him and all the other people like him and how they add value to themselves versus our prophets, our companions, etc.
But don't you think there's a huge problem here, because the very audience that he's trying to win over, the far right, they need strong characters, and he doesn't fit that.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult situation to be in. Now, I have a particular idea about him, that he was born in the apartheid South Africa. He's born in the 70s. How is it possible that when the apartheid regime fell, he was around 20 years old. How is it possible that he doesn't have some of that apartheid hatred within him?
Yeah.
How is it possible? Because if you look at his behavior today and the behavior of the people who follow him, like Saad God, right? The other day, he was attacking black people. And he put up a statistic about you're more likely to be attacked by a black person and white people. And
so you think it's resentment then?
Yeah, it could be. Look, you know, and you've read, you know, psychoanalysis of certain people and how dreams affect them, or experiences in their youth affect them. I was thinking,
could be the case.
How is it possible you're born in London, and that street thuggery has dragged all the way to Oxford, right? Even though you've, like, it's there in your bones, in your DNA. How is it possible if you're born in South Africa and you've been through that type of, okay, blacks are inferior to whites and this and that, and that's the society's fabric, you're not affected by that? How is that possible? It doesn't make any sense to me.
It's an interesting point. It's a very interesting point. Well, yeah, I am not impressed by him. He's really an unimpressive individual. And I think that really he needs to start looking at real men as role models, because he's not one of them. He's not a real man. He needs to start looking at who we consider to be, like, for example, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If he looks at that and he analyzes, him and his followers analyze the life of the Prophet in every single metric, there's no way that you can compare.
Even, I mean, you're speaking about the Prophet, peace be upon him.
Even from his paradigm.
But even if he was to look at Malcolm X, look at Omar Mukhtar, he was to look at Imam Shamil, look at any strong men from this era. Even look at, for example, we have a situation where people have a lot of money, they have a lot of influence, like Khabib. And what is he doing with that? He's not using it to pump up his ego and do this and do that. And so the way I think about it,
that's probably a much more fair comparison, to be honest. Someone like him versus someone like Khabib even. Because quite frankly, like, you know, you could argue Khabib's influence is more. Yeah. In many ways. There are things Khabib can do and say, and the way he comes across, which are much more powerful.
And English is not even his first language. Yeah. He's, you know, initially he wasn't, like, English is difficult for him. He doesn't understand the culture, doesn't understand this, doesn't understand that. But look at how he may say a few words, but we remember them.
That's right.
I think, lastly, there's one last thing I wanted to basically say.
Location.
And this is something which you, as a public speaker, you must have gone through this, right? You've had a discussion with Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate, William Lane Craig, Noam Chomsky, all these people, right? Dawkins pending, inshallah, right? You do preparation. I've seen you do preparation, but sometimes, Hijab, you're called last minute, you have to do stuff, but you still would prepare. That speech was an insult to everybody watching online and everybody sitting in the audience, because he was fumbling and mumbling, and he had you could tell there was a pigeon heart in that chest. It's almost like he was scared of the audience. Look at my child.
The child actually had more confidence than he did. The child came out putting his hand up. He looked more of a man than he did.
Yeah, well, probably had more testosterone as well.
He had more social awareness, for sure, 100%. Yeah. He knew when to put the hand. He knew how to address the audience. The boy was better than him. Maybe
he came to rescue him. He saw that. And do you know what? There was a moment I felt Trump was thinking, this ain't looking good. This ain't looking good. So he was like, oh, you know, like, he brought him on the audience for 1 minute. Other people get, you know, a bigger time on stage. Why did he come off so quickly? You know? So there was another cheesy time that he came on the stage and started jumping up and then it's like, are you not aware that everyone's looking around you thinking, Muppet? Like, what is this? So any closing remarks on this?
No, that's all. I think that, you know, it's really good too that we've done that, because just to show that they're holy cows. I mean, Elon Musk is now the holy cow of the far right. Yeah. That how fallible, how weak, and how cringeworthy their holy cows are.
Yeah. And I think having this particular speech and our reaction to it in context of the scandal, right? In context of the scandal, some of the things that we've discussed today, they make sense in terms of the behaviors that we are thinking of. Why? Because one of the things that I was hearing from people before is, well, why would Musk be interested in a Muslim in the UK? And I'm thinking, well, if he's interested in a scientist in Thailand or a gamer, and you making a video
with actually much less followers,
and the chronology is the video about him and his dad, his grooming father, and then a few days later these things happen. So a vindictive person like that, who's sitting next to Trump, by the way, and I've seen him sitting next to Trump, and instead of talking to Trump, he's on his phone. That's the sort of self-control the man has, right? Why wouldn't a person like that see a video which a very influential Muslim makes, and Muslims are the enemy, and the far right,
about his father in particular as well.
His father in particular. Why wouldn't a person like that? Why isn't it likely that they'd be offended by that, by the very least,
and try and take retributive action?
And for the sake of being very clear on this, we don't at the moment have absolute proof, but the circumstantial evidence certainly is concerning, isn't it?
It is concerning. But with that, we will conclude. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.